we Eclipse basically. We're going to be using WebDriver part of also. Okay, so there are basically two different part about Selenium. So actually the record and playback. So that done using Mozilla Firefox plugin. Okay, so that's something deal with recording and playback of your Selenium. So and another most flexible or powerful way of using Selenium is to use the WebDriver. Okay, it is very nuanced in terms of how you can use the Selenium. So if you're taking WebDriver is basically with which you can actually create complex frameworks. So when you are automating some application, so the things that you basically need to do is to come a framework, right? So if framework is there, a lot of advantages there when you're making an application. So in a framework, lot of your code can be used, right? So anybody in this session experience with designing automation framework or an automation framework in any tool, any test automation tools?
This is Praveen here.
Okay.
We use this framework we had been using. It was a pre-designed hybrid framework in which some of the test cases were reutilized for different scenarios. So like scenario 1, scenario 2, there are 4 or 5 scenarios. Scenario 1, some login pages there, and your same scenarios to be covered in that. So we reutilize that codes like the same events we use.
Oh, that's great. And I'll ask like any other tools, right? So you can actually create automation framework. You can have either keyword framework or a modular framework. I think Selenium WebDriver. Okay, so WebDriver is basically something with which you integrate Selenium with Eclipse. So have Selenium integrated with Eclipse. So it's going to be easy to create a framework. So you can have a full library, a library of different functions. Or be in terms of Java, you can have multiple classes which will basically have certain objectives. So whatever different activities that you have or lessons that you have, and you have some common actions for all your test cases. So those things can be basically automated by using Selenium. Okay. So Selenium WebDriver to be more specific. Okay. We'll be discussing a little bit about Selenium. So we'll be discussing about the difference between Selenium driver, Selenium RC, Selenium IDE, how to download and install Selenium IDE in your Firefox browser, and that we're going to see how to set up an Eclipse project to execute the sample code that we're going to create. Also look at how to locate events on a web page. Okay. So and also the actions that can be done on the web elements. So that we're going to see. So since an open source testing tool. Okay. That means what that means is that you don't need any license. So you can download. Okay, so it's basically something called open2a.org. Okay, this is actually the group is responsible for making the Selenium resources. Okay, see how to set up Selenium, how to use Selenium, and how to probably set up a Eclipse project in Selenium. Okay, and before on to right, so we're going to be using a lot of Java and Java concept class. What is class? What is an object? What is how to instantiate any of a class? All you're going to be using. Okay, so I bet all of you are familiar with Java concepts. So if you're not familiar, kindly stop me so we can just discuss on things which are not clear. Okay, so basically there are two when it comes to Selenium, there is something called Selenium 1 and Selenium 2. Selenium is basically the main bits of Selenium like Selenium RC and Selenium Core. Okay. So RC is basically a popular UI automation library. Okay. So it helps to keep these things in mind. So Selenium 1 is a popular automation library. So this consists of a lot of library classes, Java library classes, which will access the various elements of an user interface and automation with that. Okay, so this really allows the developers and testers to automate their interaction with a web application under test. So typically, the web application that you're doing, it's called WAT. This is actually web application test. Selenium RC or Selenium 1 will basically provide UI automation library. So basically, the development testers to automate their interaction with the web application under test or the web application that you're testing. Okay, so uh, um, basically provides the libraries or the necessary code for multiple languages. Okay, basically provides. Okay, so you basically use different programming languages. You can use Perl, Python, Ruby. Okay, Groovy you can use Java, Core Java is something that you can use. So you use various different programming languages if you use Selenium. So Selenium is something like framework and UI automation library, which will basically allow your developers and testers to automate their interaction with a web application under test. So Selenium provides libraries as a support for multiple languages to program. Okay. So in terms of design, right? So Selenium RC is actually very close to JavaScript. Okay. The Selenium RC basically uses JavaScript. Okay. So the core components part of your Selenium RC of JavaScript, and they're called Selenium core. Okay. Core is something which will drive the web application under test on a browser. Okay. So you have questions? So here, are you make out some concepts with this question? Let's. I just hope that this is very interactive. I'm on here, so I don't know everyone. So can you ask me questions? Okay. So yeah, there's no point of taking a web session. So OnWebX is like something that you can ask from anywhere. So one of the disadvantages is that people tend to sleep off because it's just like and I can't see what you're doing. Okay, so I really hope that you guys are active and ask me some questions. Okay, uh, so what we've been discussing about Selenium RC, there is actually Selenium Remote Control or Selenium 1. Okay, so I'll call Selenium 1. Okay, design again Selenium RC choose generic JavaScript. So the script components that the Selenium uses is called Selenium Core. So Selenium Core is used to drive the web application under test on browser. Okay. So again, the decision to use generic JavaScript that can drive the web application and test on a browser should comply with the security policy. Okay. You guys heard of same origin policy? So you every single available browser in the market, they have this policy. That is actually same origin policy. So something which is strictly, just comply by all the different browsers. All this they have a security policy called same origin policy. So what is it basically means is that every browser in the market supposes this policy that the web on the website that is loaded onto it. Okay, so do you guys have any idea what is the same one policy?
No.
So nobody has any idea about the same origin policy. Okay, and this policy, right? So to understand how a script gets executed when a website is loaded uh, browser. Okay, for every website that is loaded onto it, so browser basically creates a set box for the website JavaScript. Okay, this box restricts the JavaScript to be executed only on its particular website domain. So you can understand, right? So basically, whenever for every site that is loaded on a particular browser, right? So the browser basically creates a sandbox. So sandbox is something that will execute not from within your local system. Sandbox is actually something which is created in the website domain itself. Okay. The particular script gets executed on the particular respective web domain. Okay. So this is a security policy. So since it is actually executed in a sandbox, a script that belongs to one website not execute on another website. Okay. So for example, if a particular website is having on Java, so it is executed on another website which is currently being loaded on that particular browser. Okay. So this is a security policy. Okay. So actually hackers they use something called cross-site scripting. Okay, so this cross-site scripting, so they basically run one script which is not originally part of your website, but the same browser is executing the script. Okay, so if you execute the script simultaneously, this can affect your website domain. So the issue. So one of the reasons why I have security feature there is actually same origin policy. Okay, it's a challenge, right? So since all your Selenium core is made of JavaScript, so how do you expect or how do you expect the browser to execute some JavaScript which is not part of your original website? The problem, right? So that's you. So I'm just coming to a point how this is built. Okay, before I discuss about Selenium RC or Selenium core, right? So Selenium core, Selenium RC, they have been upon JavaScript. So by default, these websites have this issue about having the scripts which are being executed from outside the website domain. So if the script is not from the same website, so it's not going to basically execute. So it's going to actually out the script from being executed. Okay. So how does this Selenium RC handles or how does it work around this native security policy? So again to overcome this security risk, right? So basically Selenium RC will act as HTTP proxy server. Okay, that means is that when the test script basically asks to browser, so Selenium RC server launches the browser and injects its own the Selenium core JavaScript in the browser. Okay, so all the subsequent requests for web application under test basically go through the Selenium RC. So Sales by default act as a HTTP proxy server to the actual web server hosting a web application under test. So it makes the browser that the web application is being served from the RC server domain and the actual web server's domain. And uh, okay, so you guys understand it's kind of confusing. Okay, so all the browsers they have the security policy where they will not let any script executed from outside the website domain. So basically, to handle this, Selenium RC will act as a HTTP proxy server. So all requests from your web application under test actually your view AUT. Okay, so all your requests are handled by your Selenium RC. So when requests are handled by your Selenium RC, So what is that the browser thinks that your website is hosted in Selenium only. So that helps the server execute the Selenium code and web application. Make okay to give you a idea of your Selenium RC works. Okay, so most people are not aware of the security constraint. So, but we have to just understand that there is a security constraint. Selenium RC is since it is of JavaScript, so it will be able to work with the security constraint where a browser will not allow a JavaScript to be executed from outside the particular website domain. So in order to cross the situation, so your Selenium RC basically is a proxy server. So what means is that your Selenium RC will take the request from the browser and send it to the actual website and receive the response from the actual website and give back to the browser. So say your Selenium RC injects JavaScript into the browser. Okay, so something that Selenium RC does to come around this particular by native security limit. Okay, anything to ask me? So is that understandable? Okay, basically you have set a Selenium RC, a test developer through his test script, right, can come your RC server to perform certain actions on the web application under test on certain browser. So how your Selenium RC will work? Yeah, so you anyone who is using this Selenium RC, they will be using the script or a script. You can Selenium RC server to perform certain actions on the web application test or anyway. So the way the user can come your Selenium to perform something by using the 10 libraries provided by the Selenium RC. Okay. Uh, uh, question?
Sure. Manoj had some queries. Manoj.
Yeah.
Hello. And Manoj,
Yeah.
actually, what is IDE?
ID is something called Selenium ID is some plugin which gets installed in your browser. Okay, so
Okay.
we will come to know about all these components in detail. Okay.
Okay.
So the thing is actually whenever you're automating, right? So what actually doing
Yeah.
is that you're creating all the objects in your web page, right? Page, so Selenium they call it web elements. So there are
Okay.
actions that you can perform the web elements. Okay,
Okay.
so all your page, all the different components of a web page can be actually ultimately boiled down to web elements. Okay,
Okay.
so what actually do with them is that so we do actions on the web element. So we do any action on the web element. So open a page or click a link or type something on the different web elements. All your input boxes, your boxes, these are web elements. Okay. So what we do with the ID is that ID is a way of identifying this web element. So you have once you have a website. So if you used any other QTP and all, right? In Qt you can create object repository with object spy, right? You understand that
Yeah.
concept, right? So
Yeah.
say using ID you can actually identify the objects and you get. It's not like in Selenium you don't usually for creating a repository, so you can actually easily identify elements by using ID. ID.
Okay.
Selenium
So
ID
that
works as a spyware, like as in UTP we have a spyware, so same thing.
see no in QTP you have object spy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is not you can't call it spyware is different and object spy is different. Spyware is actually something which is by hackers. Okay.
Spy.
So
Object
okay,
file.
so yeah, it's actually even a little bit more sophisticated than object file also. So the thing with ID is you can create test cases, test suits. You can execute you can execute a test or you can create an automated test case by using this Selenium IDE also. But Selenium IDE, you cannot actually do advanced scripting. You cannot basically perform a lot of different modular framework and all using IDE. So I for very basic automation as well as to identify the objects. So in Selenium terms, right, you call the objects as web elements. So this is basically used for trying the web elements as well as to try very simple automation cases. Okay. So question. Hello. Anybody else have any interesting questions? Oh, nobody has any interesting questions. Okay. You just keep your questions ready. So it's very nice way of just confirming whatever we have learned, as well as confirming on certain concepts that we discussed. Thank you for asking the question. Okay. Any other questions? Kindly stop me and ask me. Okay. We're discussing about Selenium only. Okay. So we're gonna mainly going to be focusing on Selenium web driver. But before we move on to the Selenium web driver, I wanted to give you a very brief idea as to Selenium R also. So we'll be touching this on WebDriver, Selenium RC, as well as ID also. Okay, so that's what we're gonna focus on. Okay, so a tester developer through his her script can be command Selenium RC to perform certain actions on the particular web application under test certain browser. Okay, so the user can command Selenium RC to perform something using the libraries provided by the Selenium RC. Okay, so a lot of different client libraries which are basically provided by the Selenium RC. So these libraries are there for different programming languages. Okay, so client libraries for basically Java, Ruby, uh, Python, for PHP and .NET also. So you have libraries for all these different programming languages. So again, the commands that which you use in your test script, right? So commands which are passed from the test script to the Selenium RC, they are called Selenium commands. Okay. Okay. So Selenium in a test script, right? So you have your set of Selenium commands to test a scenario on the web application under test. Okay. So Selenium RC server receives the command from a test script, right? It will basically launch the test script in a browser by launching the particular Selenium core also into the browser. Okay, how it basically works. Okay, Selenium RC server will basically receive commands. Okay, so you can actually download your client libraries. Okay, so you can actually download the client libraries which is specific for your program languages, and then you can use the commands to your browser in or your Selenium app, which will be that's part of the framework that you're using, right? So the Selenium server will do the command from the script and launch the script in preferred browser, and with launching, it will inject the Selenium core into the browser. So that really works. Okay. So the Selenium RC basically works on JavaScript only. The Selenium RC basically understands only the Selenium command. Okay, so these client libraries doing then, so these client libraries are doing is that they're responsible for creating Selenium command and sending the Selenium command to the Selenium. That's how your basic thing works. Okay, so first thing you will have test scripts. Okay, query. Okay, so or Ruby, Python, or PHP. Your test script can be in any of these following programming languages, and you libraries in all these different programming languages. So we are in our examples, right? So we're going to be discussing on Java. So we can use Java. Java is pretty much more. I think especially since I am from a Java background, I'm more comfortable in using Java, and you can use it. So a very very powerful, integrated development environment. So easy to get a lot of help using Eclipse. So although we can use Eclipse for any languages also, but it's a little better to visualize and a little bit better in terms of performance also. Okay, so we're going to use the libraries for Java. Okay, so then once you create the test scripts, then what's going to happen is that the Selenium commands are generated. Selenium commands are actually sent to the Selenium RC. RC is injected. So this will launch the browser and it will basically form the desired action that you need to perform on the web application under test. Okay, that's what you call the website you're going to test for the user you want to test. Okay, again, uploading on browser, right? So the Selenium core execute all the Selenium commands from the test script. Okay. And the Selenium commands are something which are generated by the client libraries. So you can run native language and your libraries are responsible for converting your native code into Selenium commands. Okay, one code this script onto the browser. This Selenium core execute all this Selenium commands from the test script. Okay, commands are coming from the Selenium RC. Okay, this will help you in testing the web application under test. The browser restrict particular JavaScript because say sign-on policy. The basic it doesn't restrict the JavaScript from executing is the fact that if your core and your application under test as part of the same domain. Okay, we've been discussing about the fact there is a security restriction. Basically, the JavaScript from outside the to execute in a browser. So restriction is actually bypassed by the fact that the Selenium RC acts as a proxy server. So that it will basically process Selenium automation. So whenever you're automating, so you have client libraries for your different programming languages. You download the client library and create programs in your programming languages. So your programs are actually your test scripts. So again, test scripts, what they actually do is that they create Selenium commands to be executed on the web application under test, and the same RC will listen to these Selenium commands and generate your web browser actions. So what browser action that you have, right, is actually generated by your Selenium RC. Selenium RC is responsible for executing whatever user action that you wish to come on your regular web application under test. Okay, once again, user does not restrict the job which is come out of your website domain basically because it treats your Selenium core and your web application under test as part of the domain. So that is one of the reasons why you are able to surpass this, security station. Okay, so if you understand how this basically works. Yeah. Hello.
I just had a question. Like,
Yeah, a little more louder.
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Just want to know, like, you had said that it's.
I think I lost your voice. Can you again be a little more louder, please?
Can you hear?
Yeah.
What happens, like, if we are sending multiple requests, so does it go through a parallel run, or how does it work then?
So you automation, right? So it's not about people requests. So automation, it usually comes as a sequence, right? right? So we don't do performance testing and all using Selenium. So it's possible though to have processing multiple because it's quite, but usually automation we don't follow that because it's about for a sequence of events at the same. And it's possible definitely to handle multiple requests. Usually not done. Only we can see handled. Okay.
Sure. So
Any other?
thanks,
Sure, welcome. So any other? When it comes to the HTTP proxy part of the MRC server, all the requests and responses of the browser for the particular application under test go to web server via Selenium server. Because of this, the browser thinks that Selenium web RC is actually serving the web apps under test. So, okay, so it works as a proxy server. The Selenium RC actually works as a proxy server. That is one of the reasons why you execute JavaScript outside the website domain. Okay. Again, your execution, right? Your Selenium RC will send the test result back to the test for the developer analysis. So your program, right? So the test script is nothing but program that you code any of the programming languages. So after the execution is done, right? So the Selenium will again send the test result back to the test script for developer or your testers analysis. So I have to some kind of logic to process the output of the result also. So if you want to display it in a format, you have to maybe code that also. Okay. So very brief introduction to this RC. Okay. So yeah, here we just discussed about limited browsers where they can execute any JavaScript outside the website domain. So in order to come that, we've seen how Selenium overcomes this native security or same limitations that your browsers have. So we've seen how Selenium basically handles this. Seen that there are client libraries for different program languages. So you have client libraries for Java, you have client libraries for Ruby, Python, Perl, PHP, .NET. So what client libraries, what you can do with this client libraries, you can actually create Selenium commands. Okay, so Selenium commands are something responsible for automating your action. Okay, so, this with the help of this client library, you can create Selenium commands. Okay, Selenium commands are interpreted by your Selenium RC. Okay, Selenium RC, which is nothing, it acts like a proxy server. It will receive this Selenium commands and it will basically push the browser to execute the JavaScript that you want to execute. Okay, so execution is complete. Again, the Selenium RC will process information or the output and back to the test script. So again, test script has something related in any of the native languages, and the script has to do the analysis, so it has to pass the data. Okay, it has to basically decode data that it receives from your Selenium RC and it has to format the result. Okay, so that there are some limit. Limited your RC. Okay, so in order to overcome some of these limitations, right? So the driver is something which came into existence. Okay, so RC has these kind of limitations. So it's based on JavaScript only. Okay. One of the major limitations is that in Selenium RC it's not possible for testing a lot of other applications. Okay, so if you want to test a mobile application, it might not be possible. If you want to test, something which basically blocks your as you say. So plenty of times we have seen that a lot of browsers block, especially if it's a banking site and all. So some they actually prevent JavaScript from being executed So these limitations are there for your Selenium C or Selenium 1 to actually overcome limitations, right? So driver is something which came into existence mainly for overcoming these kind of limitations. So there are two advantages using the driver. We will get better control on the browser by implementing browser specific implementation. Okay, questions on the things that we discussed so far. Okay, moving on to the WebDriver part of Selenium. Okay, so WebDriver is also called Selenium 2. Okay, Selenium. Okay, that's what your Selenium 2 is. So Selenium is basically WebDriver. So discussing about Selenium 1. Selenium is your Selenium or remote control. They call it Selenium remote control also. Selenium RC consists of something called JavaScript. I mean, it's a library of JavaScript. So they have native libraries for each of the programming languages. So Selenium RC basically consists of JavaScript and relies very heavily on JavaScript component Selenium core. Now, there are a lot of limitations because we're using Selenium RC. So driver is something which came into existence to as a solution to the limitations which are there for your Selenium RC. Selenium 2 was the driver has some advantages. Okay, so one of the advantages is that it will help you get better control on the browser by implementing browser specific implementation. Okay, so you have separate WebDriver for Firefox. You have separate WebDriver for Internet Explorer. So different browser you have specific web implementations. Okay, so to give by okay, so one advantage of using a WebDriver. One another advantage of using WebDriver is that it basically gives a better control on the programming experience. Okay, okay, have a better programming experience by adhering more closely to the object-oriented programming fundamentals. Since if you're using your WebDriver, you can immediately go and use your object-oriented program techniques. Okay, so to give okay, so by I will call okay. So if you're using WebDriver, programming tends to be more object-oriented programming. Okay, so again, if you're using Selenium RC, most of the implementation of Selenium RC happens in a script. So how you script, right? So you basically define some functions and this is actually object oriented. So it is not as purely object oriented as maybe how you implement in Java, right? So basically you can have different classes defined and organized in a much better way. But and again you can compile your classes and uh, share your classes to someone who is interested. So those kind of possibilities are there if you're using Java. And again, you're using any other similar object-oriented programming. So kind of advantages are there where you can compile and call it, deploy your scripts as programs itself. But if you're scripting languages, so each and every time you want to execute the script, there is no option to basically compile and deploy your scripts, and you basically have to run it each and every time that you want to run the test case. So if you're using WebDriver, the advantages are that you have control on how the things are executed. Also, you have control on how to develop your script also. So in WebDriver, you can go ahead and completely use all the object-oriented fundamentals, or you can actually use object-oriented concepts for developing your test script. So that is actually one of the advantages of using WebDriver. Okay. So again, driver is the current implementation of Selenium. So everybody is focusing on driver. So a lot of the development on Selenium also happens on the web driver. So you basically have different web drivers for different browsers. Okay, so it's not like you have different web drivers for different browsers. You have web driver implementation, different implementation for your different browser. Okay, uh, uh, either or a developer through or right. So basically, command the web driver to perform certain actions on the application under test on certain browser. One of the advantage of using the web driver. So instead of Selenium RC, invoking JavaScript and then again invoking your application under test on certain browser, here the advantage is that through it, right? So you can basically command your web driver to perform certain actions on your browser. Okay. So the way the user can command the web driver to perform something is by using the client libraries or language binding provided by the web driver. Okay, like Selenium RC. So we also provide certain client libraries or language binding for certain programming languages. The libraries or the client libraries are available for different platforms like Java, Python, Perl, PHP, all these different languages, right? So they basically have a set of libraries. Okay, so by using this binary libraries, right? So developers can invoke browser-specific implementations of the web driver. For example, if you have you have Firefox driver, then you have Internet Explorer driver, you have Opera driver, and okay, so these drivers can be invoked uh, uh, the client libraries so that you can interact with the web application on respective browser. Okay, so these basic browser implementation of the web will work with the natively. So instead of using JavaScript, so the specific library, right? So the browser specific implementation of the web will work with the natively. Okay, so and they will execute the commands from outside the browser to simulate exactly how the application user uh, okay. So does you are able to understand this using JavaScript? So using WebDriver, you can program natively. Okay, so you can actually call the actual browser specific and you can actions that whatever that user is performing. Same in the same way how your Selenium gives back the output to the uh, script, right? So after executing again, your web driver will send the test result back to the test script for developers and analysis. So like I said, you have basically different drivers for different browsers. Okay, so you have Firefox, you have driver, and you have Chrome. Okay, so lot of drivers. So I'm not going to list the entire list. You basically create a script using libraries. Okay, and you support for Java, Ruby, Python, or programming languages. So what basically happens is that uh, uh, WebDriver will basically listen to the things. Again, this is also something similar to Selenium only. So or the Selenium RC only. So it will listen to whatever scripts generated and what are actions that you're that you're asking the particular web driver to trigger in the particular web application under test, right? So those actions are triggered by the web driver. Okay, so different implementation. So depending on which browser that you're using, you can use this. Okay, advantage is that again will give this driver will when compared to Selenium RC, the WebDriver will give control on the browser by implementing specific implementation, and again it will give a programming experience to the developer because it is more closely to object-oriented programming fundamentals. Okay. Again, the tester or developer through that they can basically command the WebDriver to perform certain things on the web application under on certain browsers. Okay, you have the client libraries or binding for the particular browser or the platform. So libraries are provided in different languages such as Java, Ruby, Python, Perl, PHP, .NET. Okay, using the language binding clients, and the developers can invoke a specific implementation of the WebDriver. Okay, Firefox driver, Internet Explorer driver, Opera driver, all these drivers are there. Okay, one of the advantages is that instead of having instead of using JavaScript action, so you actually do things externally. So here the browser is actually not really action, but something the client libraries are directly doing the actions by using the WebDriver. So the advantage. So your automation will be that much more. So automation script again will not be limited by fact that maybe your JavaScript is by the browser. Okay, so all these different advantages are there for your Selenium WebDriver. Selenium development happens around year only, so it's be focused on the WebDriver. Any questions on things that we discussed far? Yeah.
Actually, novice to that. So my main question is, see, Selenium IDE we can download from the Selenium website and use it. So as per what I can understand is from your what you're saying is Selenium RC will you download from and use it directly. You program call. I mean, you use Eclipse for programming that.
Yeah, actually, yeah, Selenium IDE is a browser plugin. Okay, so Selenium IDE is a browser plugin. It's only for Mozilla Firefox. So Selenium RC is basically something you need to download as client libraries and add to the program that you're planning to implement. So in Java, you might have to download it as a library and add it to your class path. Then you can actually create your test script. So your script will access classes or the Java files which are there in your Selenium library or WebDriver library. So it's the same for Selenium. Yeah.
Where to add that RC? Because ID means you will add it on Firefox browser in a plugin. Whether this RC we need to add it in Eclipse itself or somewhere else.
So Selenium RC again, like I told you, is nothing but a UI automation library. Selenium and Selenium WebDriver, they are actually nothing but libraries or UI automation libraries. So the thing is, if you're using Java, you need to create Java programs for testing application. So if you're creating a Java program, you need to add all these libraries to Java program and class. So if you're familiar with Java, so when you want to use some external libraries, you can add those Java files in your class path. So even if you're using any other programming language, you need to import these packages. Okay, so you need to import these packages in your program, or so that you can create a test script using this client libraries. Okay, so IDE is like as we have discussed before, right? IDE is it can be used for creating simple automation tests as well as basically creating creating a repository of objects. Okay, so not exactly object repository, but to identify the web elements. Okay, automation is nothing but doing actions on web elements. So your website is nothing but a composite of different web elements. Okay, so to identify the web elements, you can use IDE. So therein, that is actually the limitation of IDE. IDE is the main intention of IDE is to identify the web elements plus the methods that access through for the particular web element. I hope I answered your question, but I'm sure that guys might be having a lot of confusions on all these different things. Okay, so we move ahead. I hope that probably I can clear some of your doubts, but if you have questions, just kindly do ask me. Just hoping that clear some doubts. Okay, so what is the difference between Selenium 1 and Selenium 2? So what is the difference between Selenium RC and Selenium Web? So we'll quickly see some differences between them. Okay, so they basically differ in the way the browser is handled. Okay, so again, earlier, Selenium drives the browser from browser by sitting in it as a JavaScript or say core. Okay, all the events that are to be executed on the uh, where the tests go through the core. Okay, so approach will have some limitations. Okay, so being limited within the JavaScript sandbox of the browser, it needs to apply with the same own policy. Okay, something restricts RC. Okay, because this is a JavaScript library is generic, not specific to any particular browser. Okay, the developer needs to test the script in browser separately. Okay, so sometimes the test script executes in one browser and maybe it executes in some other browser. Okay, so maybe you're using WebDriver. Again, you have WebDriver to handle the browser from outside the browser. So it's an implementation for each browser. Developer who wants to execute the test in a particular browser choose that particular implementation of the WebDriver. So this gives the test script a better handle on browser because the WebDriver implementation speak to the actively. Okay, this increases the robustness of your test scripts. So that is the first difference. Okay, so first difference is the way it handles. So this is for instance, so again, Selenium asks the browser from within the browser. So it will basically sit in as a script. Okay, Selenium asks is nothing but a JavaScript. Okay, WebDriver handles the browser from outside the browser. So it has an implementation for each of the browser. And the developer who wants to execute or that particular browser should use that particular implementation of the WebDriver. So this is the test script handle browser. Okay, so WebDriver implementation speak to the browser natively. So this increases the robustness of the test script. The advantage is that you have better API. So WebDriver comes with a better set of APIs. So they usually meet the expectation of most first by being closer to the object-oriented programming in terms of its implementation. Okay. So that is second. So understand that point. Okay, APIs which are there for the WebDriver, they very closely match your general object-oriented concepts. Okay, so it's developed like any other Java class. Okay, whereas RC is basically designed to be executed as a JavaScript. So this basically sits in the browser and execute the browser from within the browser. Okay, so UC is basically concentrating on provide better solutions as a JavaScript, whereas Selenium driver actually has better implementation as a object-oriented concept. Okay, so as in terms of object-oriented programming, Selenium WebDriver is implemented or suited or oriented programming. is for purpose of testing mobile application. Okay. Okay, so WebDriver, mobile specific implementation. Okay, you have one driver, Android driver. Okay, so people can test the test scripts that can execute their applications on a simulator or emulator or even on actual devices. Okay, Selenium RC doesn't support mobile testing. So that's so you have iPhone driver, and driver. Okay, get test scripts that execute mobile applications on similar emulators or even on actual devices. Okay, so major difference between Selenium 1 and Selenium 2. Okay, another area, the major difference is developer support and advanced functionalities. Okay, so web is actually being developed very actively for a period of time. So you can see many advanced interactions with as well as mobile application. So you have handling, APIs, and all these different functionalities are there in WebDriver. Okay, so the AI set is actually getting bigger and bigger with lots of features. So it will never be the case about Selenium RC. Okay, Selenium WebDriver is definitely the future. Okay, I'm not saying RC is completely obsolete, but the RC is not as actively pursued as compared to your Selenium WebDriver. So in your Selenium WebDriver has advanced features as file handling and such. Okay, so all this are there. Okay, your Selenium WebDriver, or we'll put focus on Selenium WebDriver. Okay, going right. So I think Wednesday, I think today is Monday, and QA also will be having that. Okay, we'll be having hands-on session. That is like have the Selenium Firefox IDE installed, as well as we'll have Eclipse installed. We have Eclipse, so the library. Okay, so what your Selenium WebDriver looks like. Okay.
One doubt, like which are the basic modules of Java that we require for a normal user to which are modules do you require, like constructor, destructor, like which are modules required for Selenium?
So you need to basically know how to create a Java class. Okay, how to import. Mainly need to have some concept as to Java, what is a Java class, what is an object, how is an instance of an object, how to import an object. Kind of basic concepts are required.
So can you give us some basic concepts, like most of them are not aware of Java programming. So is it possible?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So then we'll do one thing. So see the basics of Java. Okay, so I am taking something called Eclipse. Okay, so implementation of Eclipse is specific for Spring. So the basic thing about Java is that you shouldn't be intimidated about Java. Java is very simple. So it's one of the most simplest and the most clearest language. But not at all familiar with the base of Java, it can be quite difficult for us to understand what we are trying to do with Selenium. So Selenium is see again there are two parts of Selenium. Just the Selenium IDE. So or the Selenium. So it's a completely different thing. And the second is the development part, the test script development part. Okay, so you have actually Selenium, actually Selenium 1 and Selenium 2. Your Selenium 1 is Selenium RC. So it is a more pre version of your Selenium development program. So your Selenium WebDriver is the most advanced part of your Selenium test script development structure. Okay, so what we basically do is that we have libraries. So Selenium is nothing but a group of libraries or group of programs which will help you interact your web application under test. Okay, just to touch base on Java, right? So again, I am using some Spring Eclipse, a version of Eclipse which is specifically designed for Spring. So it's familiar with what is Spring. Spring is actually a Java framework. Okay, so Java development framework. So it's all same as Eclipse regular, but this is like having some extra framework components which are developing a Spring application. Okay, so when we intimidated with the way things look, okay, it's say our Eclipse uh, platform. So I'll do one thing. I'll just probably going forward in tomorrow's or the commissions, I'll actually implement a regular Eclipse, but you'll see uh, the Eclipse in this. So as it works on object-oriented concepts. Okay, so where everything is basically objects, everything is treated as an object. Okay, so now you have some blueprint for creating object. So the blueprint creating object is called class. Okay, see, so in Java, whenever we are designing a program, right, so we create something called class files. Okay, so one thing about these class files is that the class files will have, like I told you, blueprint for creating objects. Okay. This is okay. So currently it's in debug view. So Java has different views. Okay, so Eclipse have different views. So this is a debug view. Especially this is useful, especially if you are interested in basically debugging your program or trying to understand where the error is happening. Different views that you can use. So developing Java. So what's the more useful view? Usually the Java view or Java Enterprise Edition view. So design view, you have resource view. This is like Java Enterprise Edition view. This is your regular Java view. This is a view. You are able to see where I'm pointing my mouse cursor, right?
Suresh. Yes.
These different views are there. So I show you what is Java Enterprise Edition view. So click on this view, right? So everything will change. The way things are organized will completely change. So on left hand pane, right, or on your left hand side of your desktop or laptop, you have something called the Project Explorer. The different work items that you're going to create in Eclipse will be here in the Project Explorer. So this is Project Explorer. Okay. So here you can create any new project if it's required. So here I created a project called Selenium project. Okay. You can actually just create a new Java project by wizard. So you go to the file menu, right? So file menu, you have some of new. So you can create all these different kinds of. So you can create a JPA project or enterprise application project, dynamic project. So all these different types of Java projects can be created with Eclipse. Okay. So again, Min is a framework. Min is a build management tool. So that is again EJP is enterprise Java beans. Okay. All that, something like a wizard. Okay. So if you're any of these wizards, you can create these kinds of Java projects. So I'm interested in all these different types of projects. I just want to create a very simple Java. So I'll just choose this thing called other. Uh, my laptop is like have very age-old configuration, so it's going to take quite some time to open up something. So I have to mind. So what I'm going to create a very simple Java program only. So I create something called a Java project. So all of you just keep in mind when creating an Eclipse Selenium project. So you start with creating a Java project. Okay. So this is something that you need to create. Call this learning Java, my first project. So I choose next. So before I want to the next, right? So just keep in mind you should yeah, before I begin with all of these things, one thing you need to understand is you need to have Git installed in your system. Okay, when it comes to Java, there are different kinds of Java. One is Java JRE or Java Runtime environment. The other is JDK or Java Development Kit. So if you want to code with Eclipse, or if you want to develop Selenium, so you have SDK or Java Development Kit install machine. So JDK is different your Java runtime. So most of us who are using Java for running your applications, right? So all of us have Java runtime environment installed in our machine. So that is not sufficient for developing applications in Java. For developing applications, we need something called J or Java Development Kit. I think the latest different versions of JDK. So they call it Java 7 or 1.7, Java 8, 1.6. These different versions of Java is there. So to actually go for the latest version of Java. So once you have JDK downloaded, so actually install. There is actually it comes as an install also. So actually run that exe file running Windows. Okay, so in Windows you can run the exe file and Java will get installed in your machine, or JDK will get installed in your machine. So make sure that JDK is available, right? You have to choose this execution as your JDK path. Okay, different versions of Java. I have actually 1.6, 1.7, and 1.8 version of Java. So once this is done, right-click choose any version of Java and choose the appropriate version of Java. So actually ask you. So it asks you to create this program. So there isn't any other thing which is remaining. So you can just click on finish. So before you click on right, so actually it will have 4 different in your new project wizard. Okay, so you'll have something called the course. You'll have something called the project. You'll have something called the library. Okay, so we export all different options are there, right? In the different. So libraries, right? So library is one important thing that we need to keep in mind, especially since we are trying to create a Selenium program. So all your Selenium libraries, right? So Selenium libraries will need it to be added here in your Java program. So in mind, okay. So finish and we create a Java file for you. This the Eclipse is asking this project is associated with Java perspective. So, so whether it should switch the perspective now. I said yes. Okay. So let it switch to a Java perspective. So this is really a Java perspective. Now that we have learned about the Java project, we need to understand what is it that we are creating, right? So again in Java, right? So everything is actually object oriented. Okay. So in Java, right? So one of the unique feature of Java is that it introduces a couple of different things to the world of programming. Okay. So Java, a lot of these programming languages were procedural programming languages. Okay. So procedural programming languages. So whatever is your really programming is about instruct computer about things, certain things, right? So if you want to achieve something, task, so you have to tell the computer what all activity that the computer needs to do to that task. So earlier programming languages, they used to be procedure languages. Okay, to be line number. Okay, so line number 10 actually declare some variable. Okay, so they say rem, declare a is equal to 100. Okay, some again line number will be 20, and okay, so then you we will call b 300. Okay, so again number 30 will be there. Okay, so your programming where. Okay, so then comes the concept of object oriented programming. So in object oriented programming, right, so everything is treated as an object. So any item that you see is actually treated as an object. For example, right, so your bank account, right, so your bank account is actually treated as an object. Okay, so in object oriented programming you have something called class. In Java called class, maybe in V.NET is called as a function or routine. So different programming languages have different ways of calling the class. Okay, so Java you have something called class. Okay, so class is class consists of a couple of different things. Okay, so in your class, so things what you describe is the object. So the class is basically a blueprint of the object. For if you have account number, right? So for account number you have something called a class. So I'll just open a new file. So account bank account is actually a class. Okay, so in order to create a bank account class, right? So first thing what I do is I declare something called as class, and I say uh, what I will change notepad language. So I get some color based what I type, or it'll show some different formatting for the stuff that I do. So first thing that I understand about Java is that you can actually declare certain things as classes. Suppose I have something called account as class, right? So I want to declare account as class means I'll declare a class called account. Okay, then open a curly bracket. Okay, so in Java everything happens within a curly bracket. Okay, for statements, all your declaration, everything happens in a curly bracket. Okay, the first part of defining a class is that you can actually define the parameters, or you can actually create a constructor for your class. So when I say constructor, right? So what do I mean by constructor? What I mean by constructor is that it's basically an agreement that this particular class will have this particular amount of fields. Okay. When I declare this constructor, so again I'll just say this is account. Okay, the account have this field name. We'll have something called in Java you cannot just simply say it's a name. So if it's a string, I have to declare as a string. Okay, name is equal to new string. So I'm not maybe I'm not exactly the correct syntax. So again, the account number needs to have some properties. It should have a name, then it should have a title. Okay, and again, the account should have uh, balance. Okay, so the syntax is not correct. I'm sure the syntax is not correct. So I'm not. So what this is actually the constructor. You have these three different fields, right? You have title and balance. So this is the constructor. So you have main constructor as you want. So you can have empty constructor also if it's required. So use of constructor is that any class which is basically going to use this account, right? They will come to know okay the fields they need to have if I want to initiate object of this account class. Okay, this account class has it can have many different methods. Okay, have a method called get account. Okay, when you before you declare method, you should actually make it public. Okay, so and get account details. It actually runs certain items, right? So get the details will give you object. Okay, so again certain codes which will actually achieve this objective. Again, for each of the fields, right? So you can have something called setter and getter. Okay, so for you can have something called get name. Okay, have set name. You can have get. Okay, you can have set title. And again, balance you can have set balance, and you can have get balance. So these are the different possible methods of this particular class. So in Java, right? So before you use an object, you have to instantiate that object. Okay, this is an account. Okay, so be an account class. So you want to use this account class, right? So in any other mine. So I use my account class. So for example, using this account class, I can create an object called my account. Okay, so my account will be an instance of this account class, but it will actually specific to the information which is there in my this personal account. Okay, my personal account, I can create a separate object called my account, and my account will have all the different methods of this account class. So usually I want to instantiate an account. Okay, first thing I need to do is that I need to declare what kind of uh, class that or what kind of object it I'm going to get instantiated. That I will call as account, and I say that the account which I want to instantiate is my account, and it's new account. So you basically instantiate an instance of any. Okay. So, now my account have different methods. Okay. So when I can access the different methods of the account in my method. So I can say my account get name. Okay. Uh, I can store name in a particular variable. Okay. Then I can say my name is equal to account get name. So what this basically does is that it will store this. So the first line, that is actually line number 26. What I've done is that variable called my account, I stored an instance of this account class. So I stored an instance of this account class in my variable called my account. So my account now has access to different methods of the account class. So account get name, it will have name, the title, it will have get set title, set balance, get balance. All the different methods will be available for your ins of this are called my account. So I think that is very that's like a very rude way of putting what that is. So Java is uh, much more than what I just described to you. Okay, so you want to get some basic concepts of Java, you can actually go to some Java sites. Okay, so one of the Java sites, I think, or has some Java sites. Okay, so let me just. So I think the basics of Java and here, Java, search for Java tutorial. So we very basics of Java. So you don't get in the new features. Okay, so new features for Java 1.8. So, but just begin here. Okay, so I and have a very brief understanding of this Java object-oriented programming concept. Okay, so what are classes? What are objects? Okay, this phases inheritance. All these things you don't focus. You just focus on object-oriented programming concepts and classes and objects. So, again, an inheritance is something that you would actively be using, but as a concept, you don't have much about it. So it's about how you can reuse the classes by having subclasses and how use the interface of the class. All these things are just focus on the basics. Really, what is object-oriented programming? What basics of and classes and objects. So if you are able to read through the first three part, will be more than useful. You just try to understand what is Java. Okay. So what we are actually doing is that okay. So you don't be very theoretical. Okay, just need to have an effective understanding as to what we are trying to achieve here. Okay, so just have a basic understanding of how you will be declaring a class and importing all the libraries and all these things. All that is required. Okay, so here let me close all the these unwanted files. Guys, any questions on the things that we discussed so far? Okay, we'll just continue with your Java and Eclipse little session, or maybe in the coming few sessions we'll be discussing on Java. Okay. So we'll just finish with our intro to again. Okay, so come back to Selenium. I make sure that you're not lost of understanding Java and Eclipse and all. So we'll be going very fast. We'll just wait for everybody to cap and understand. So I don't worry about that. So I'm aware of the fact that a lot of people are not familiar with Java and they're not familiar with Eclipse and all. So not uh, uh, run through it. So we'll just take our time to understand how Eclipse works and how we can actually go creating a program in Eclipse. Okay, so worry about it. It's very simple. So it's just because of the fact that a lot of us is not used is that having some reserves about the Java and Eclipse. Okay, so I just ran through a lot of stuff in a very short time. So I know that some of you might be still lost, wondering what is Java, wondering what is objects, what is classes. So it's Java. Java is all about object-oriented programming, and again, I just keep repeating the word object-oriented programming, but that is actually what Java is about. The basic concept is to actually encrypt data. Encapsulate data is, in a sense, actually treated as an object. So if you are interested in maintaining your bank account, right? So your bank account becomes an object. Okay, so the bank account is actually treated as an object, and it is capable of handling itself. So you increase the amount, increase the balance, the object will have methods for that. If you wanna decrease the balance, the object will have methods for that. If you want to get some details or set some details, see, the objects are independent entities. Okay, so whenever you define things, so everything is actually defined as objects. Okay, so website, right? So all your website components, they're all treated as objects. So your name account can actually be represented as something that you see on the web page. Okay, so you can have n number of fields. 5 different fields can be there for account. So each field can be actually modified by using a third. So this is the object. So the concept of the object programming. I'm sure that it can be put across in a different or better way. So if any of you are very strong in that, you can just help me and let me know so you can actually take over this part of it. Okay, I've just told you the things the way I saw it. So if there is something to it, you can always just add and provide. It will help us all in understanding things better. Okay, going back to Selenium, right? So far we have been discussing about Selenium 1 and Selenium 2. So we've seen that Selenium 1 is nothing but RC or remote control. Okay.
So
Selenium 2 is the web driver. Yeah.
So guys, do
Yeah.
one favor. Tomorrow, can you please install that Eclipse and show how to add the library files? Because Spring we don't have that much
Sure.
knowledge.
Yeah, yeah, thanks for that. See, this is in effect, this is Eclipse only. Okay, so only if I switch on this Spring, right, it will transform into Spring View. Now it's actually, if I switch to this bar, right, Java is actually nothing but pure Eclipse only. I'll show you how to download the libraries and all these things. So before on to that, I want to just touch base on certain things about Selenium. Okay. So tomorrow, yeah, definitely I'll show you how to library files, how to yeah.
Prishka, could you please provide us the version which you have to download, like Eclipse, if you want to install our systems, could you provide us the versions also? Which version?
Right. Yeah. So first download. I'll just provide you a step-by-step instruction. First download JDK. Okay. 1.7 onward, you should download. Okay. So download and install JDK. So once download and install JDK, right? Just put your computer. There should be some system properties. Okay. So in properties, make sure you have all the class path entries or variables, environment variables set correctly. So one thing should be your Java home. Java home should actually point out to the JDK. So your Java home will be pointing out to the JDK. If you do not have JDK installed, by default your Java home will be pointing out to JDK. But if you have JDK installed, you should make sure that JDK pointing out to the Java variable. So next, you should have the entry in the path. So there is a system variable called path. So the path system variable should have and for Java home. Just have entry for Java home in your path variable. Okay. Yeah. So that's something you need to make sure. So once these things are done, right? So once things are done, just to make sure you have Java installed correctly, go to command prompt and type Java version. Okay, so this should return back this reply. So it should actually reply with the version of Java that is installed. That is actually for here I've installed Java 1.7. Okay. Likewise, you should get a reply. So if this is replied, that means that your Java is installed correctly.
3.7.0 is that JDK file, right? JDK file version.
JDK, yeah, it's actually JDK.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, just make sure that Java is installed correctly. Since you have this installed, then you can just go ahead and install a version of Eclipse called Kepler. Okay. So Kepler thing that you need to install, and there are actually two different jar files, two Selenium jar files that you need to download. Okay, and let me see which version of Selenium. This version of Selenium, it's called 2.42 is the which I have worked with or I'm working with. Okay, so just put this jar file. Okay, so it's this jar file, right? So you'll have a couple of different. You'll have okay, so you have Selenium but 2. You have 2.4 SRCS. Two things are important. Apart from that, all the different files in your library. Download this Selenium Java 2 2.4.2.4. So if you download this, all your libraries will be available to you. These things, again, open source, so all maintained by the openqa.g site. Okay, so those group are responsible for maintaining your Selenium web server. So download and install these things. Okay, so take out from there. Okay.
Java, Selenium Java, if you search in Google, we can get it right.
Yeah, should
It is
be
kind
there.
Right.
Jar file, you can just search for it in Google.
Okay.
So don't worry if you're not getting it. I'll send it to you. The jar is I can send it to you. Okay. So
Okay.
yeah, so I think I better I send you the jar file so that they're all the same version.
Yeah.
So yeah, so let me just locate it and send it to you later. Okay. From that, doing that's pretty much it regarding the software requirement. So and apart from that, for once you understand the basics of this thing, right? So basics of how to set up things in Eclipse and all. We'll just go ahead and download the also. Okay, actually the Firefox plugin. Okay, Selenium IDE is useful primarily to modify the web elements. So again, automation is nothing but playing around with the web elements. Okay, so automation is all about identifying the web elements and playing around or doing some action on the web elements. So and tomorrow, if time permits, we'll just work on our first project. Okay, we'll just take things forward from there. Different drivers. Web drivers are there for Firefox, Internet Explorer, Safari, Chrome. We have an iPhone driver also. So just use the Firefox driver. Okay, we're gonna perform this action on Firefox. Use Firefox because since it's there for Firefox, we will be very easily able to identify the web elements and we can work with the web elements like that. Yeah, so any questions on the things that we discussed so far?
Actually, still is confused only. Hope when we work on real time, we will get some idea.
Okay. Yeah, but we one more thing I will repeatedly tell you, your confusions will not over unless you ask questions. Okay, even if you feel that you're wasting everybody's time, but if you ask me the questions that are giving you, your confusions will again increase when you move to the topic. Ask me a question.
Actually,
See.
yeah, go to tool execution. That time we will get some idea. But today full of theory only, na.
Yeah, sure. So tomorrow we'll actually just do the Eclipse and we'll have some brief understanding on different things about Eclipse. Okay. So I think day after tomorrow, if time permits, we'll have a classroom session where I can con your own Eclipse setup and I think all of you are only from Pune, right? Has there anyone has joined from any other location apart from Toronto?
No.
Okay. So you are
people joined from Trivandrum.
Fine. So you are sitting in a same location or you're attending from a desk only?
Definitely.
Oh, okay. Fine. Tomorrow we'll just see how to set up things in Eclipse. So I think one more thing, have JDK and Eclipse everything installed so that you guys can also simultaneously as I'm doing things. It's better you also try this, and if you cause some error, we can discuss and go forward.
So all things we need to install our machine.
These three things. Okay, Eclipse, Selenium. Selenium is a jar file which I can send you, and JDK .7. These things are needed to be installed. So we'll do one thing. We'll just wind up today's session. Okay. Again, tomorrow, just go through these things. Just go site called Oracle tutorial for Java. Just try to understand what is an object, what is a class. Don't written all. Just try to understand what is an object and class. So that will really help you in basically understanding what we are trying to do with our Eclipse. Okay.
Okay.
So we'll just wind up as of now. Okay. Thanks everyone for your time. Okay. So what do you guys feel like? Do you feel that this WebEx is? Do you feel like we need to have classroom session as well? This is more convenient for you guys.
It would be if you have a classroom session.
Classroom session.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
Okay. Yeah, I've been working from home till tomorrow. So we are having this WebEx now. So WebEx has its own advantage. The only advantage as far as I see is that I can't see what people are doing when I'm taking sessions. Okay, yeah, so we'll just try to have a classroom session also. So I don't believe much in the presentation. Okay, so I will not have a presentation ready for you guys. We better just work out on certain examples and we'll just take forward things from there. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. fine. Let me know if anything that you require. If you have any other questions, let me. Okay. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir.